Breaking news from Ottawa. Justin Trudeau says Donald Trump's tariffs have now been delayed. We're going to get you the latest developments in moments.
And we're waiting on details from the Ford government on what these developments mean for previously announced plans to pull American booze off the shelves.
And it is day 6 of the Ontario election campaign. We'll hear from all party leaders.
This is Live at 5. Good evening. I'm Bakari Sa.
Well, a glimmer of hope from the Oval Office tonight. We are following breaking news. The Prime Minister confirms tariffs on Canada have been delayed for 30 days.
Yeah,
it comes after a high-stakes phone call between Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump.
CP24's Phil Perkins is tracking the latest developments and joins us live from the newsroom. Phil.
Hey there, Bakari. And everybody, including newsrooms across North America, pivoting right now with this second phone call between President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. They had a talk earlier this morning. It reportedly went, quote unquote, good. The second one, which happened around the 3 o'clock hour, quote, went very well. And it seems like this is the fruit of their labor right now. As Lena mentioned, these tariffs that were supposed to kick in tomorrow in both directions, now delayed by 30 days. And it's not just the tariffs that are going to be delayed. There are some additions to some of the concessions that Canada is going to be doing as well in order to achieve that delay. Here's what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had to say on X. He said, quote, this is a pretty long quote here. He said, I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada is implementing our $1.3 billion border plan. That's something that they had pitched to avert these tariffs, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border. Now, he says, in addition, Canada is making new commitments in appointing a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I've also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. And then he kind of buries a lead here. He then ends the quote by saying, proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Now, this is something that many people are wondering, is this going to be achieved after Trump and Mexico managed a 30-day delay as well on those tariffs? Warning, is the same treatment going to be happening to Canada as well? So it seems that that is the case. So again, this is an evolving situation, literally happened within 30 minutes now. Premier Doug Ford, who stated today, before this news, saying that they were going to be pulling their Starlink contract. They're going to be pulling American beers off the shelves of LCBO starting tomorrow. Restaurants could no longer order American booze starting tomorrow. Well, again, the key word here, pivoting. Here's what Premier Ford had to say. Again, it was a 3-paragraph statement, but here's the meat and potatoes of it all. He says, quote, with the U.S. pausing tariffs, Ontario will also pause our retaliatory measures. So if President Trump proceeds with tariffs, again, in 30 days, we won't hesitate to remove American products off LCBO shelves or ban American companies from provincial procurements. Again, a lot can change in 30 days. Seemingly a lot can change in just a morning and afternoon, just 2 phone calls, and these tariffs are delayed 30 days. So we'll see what multiple people have to say about this. By this point, everything is stand back, wait 30 days, and see where we are in March. Back to you guys.
Wow. Okay, what a wild couple of hours it's been. Phil Perkins live from our newsroom. And for more on these developments, we're going to bring in CTV's political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair. Tom, can you help us understand what is going on here?
Hi, Lena. I think we had a pretty good hint during the call that Trump had earlier in the day with the Mexican president. When she came out of that discussion and announced precisely 10,000 troops would be at the Mexican-U.S. border and that he was pausing it for 30 days, a lot of people were saying, okay, that second phone call this afternoon is to get the same sort of an arrangement with Canada. Now, to the extent that all of this around fentanyl in Canada is complete fiction, because Canada represents 0.2%, 1/5 of 1% of the fentanyl going into the States comes from here. But Trump has been using that as an excuse to tear up the North American Free Trade Agreement, now called the U.S.-Canada-Mexico Agreement. That agreement Donald Trump put together himself, and he's reneging on that deal. He's always boasted about being the master of the deal, and he knows all about the art of the deal. And we've been seeing some of that art at work here. The problem is, Doug Ford can say that he's going to put American booze back on the shelves, but a lot of the people I know are still not going to be vacationing in the States. They're still doing everything they can to find a substitute product when something is made in the United States. This, as Melanie Joly, the minister responsible, said last week, is going to have deep, lasting implications for an otherwise incredibly successful relationship that has been going on for over 150 years.
Okay, so Tom, getting to this agreement, we have the appointment of a fentanyl czar, listing cartels as terrorists, ensuring 24/7 eyes on the border, launching a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime. What do you make of this?
Well, when you know it took Mr. Trudeau forever to recognize the Iranian Guard, as terrorist group, which they clearly were, and all of a sudden overnight, the Mexican cartels who are selling drugs, they're terrorists. I mean, if that's the game that has to be played with Trump, so be it. But we have to understand that if this is the art of the deal, it's actually the art of the game. We're playing back. We're playing Trump. He's playing us. We're playing him. He needs to be told what he wants to hear. And in this case, it's going to be that these cartels are actually terrorist groups. I have no doubt that the United States, like a lot of countries, has been dealing with a serious drug problem. And it's easy enough for him to say that he wants other people to take care of his border. But think about it for a second. 100% of the handguns that come into Canada cross the United States border illegally into Canada. And you can just imagine the reaction on the American side if we were to tell them, well, it's up to you to police the border so that those guns don't make it into Canada. Their answer would be, you police your own border. But that seems to be a one-way proposition for Trump. He wants us to take care of his border. And I think Trudeau has been very wise, and he's shown a lot of experience by simply going along with the game. Oh, yes, 10,000 people, by pure coincidence, the exact same number as Mexico, 10,000 people on the border, and we've got this new $200 million, and we're going to have a fentanyl czar. I am anxious to know who is going to be our fentanyl czar.
You and so many Canadians, Tom Mulcair. Look, you say that the fentanyl issue is fiction, which I find really interesting. I think what I'm wondering is what so many are wondering, what is this about for Donald Trump? What is he really after here?
There are a couple of things that he's after that we know of. In the last round of negotiations, the one that gave rise to this new deal that Trump signed, this U.S. and Canada-Mexico deal, there was something that we call in Canada supply management. So that applies in three main sectors: dairy, poultry, and eggs. Small farms, family-owned, they have a quota, they get to supply, they get a fair price. Canadians get a fair price in the stores. The Americans say, we want into that market. Our answer is large conglomerates own most of your farms. They bought everything up. You've lost that farming way of life, and you've lost a lot of your independence. In Canada, we can't afford to have multinationals buying up our farms. We've kept this as a way of preserving our sovereignty with regard to the food in this country. So that's one of the things that Trump has made it very clear he's going after in the next round of negotiations. And it's more and more clear that all this is a setup for that next round. Another thing that he's talked about several times since the election and 5 times during the election campaign is Canadian water. Now you can look at a map and say, well, seems like the Americans get about half of the Great Lakes water. Why are they so concerned about that? They're looking at watersheds in Western Canada. Right now, there's a rule under NAFTA that was allowed and put in by Jean Chrétien. He wanted to make sure that Canada could ban bulk water exports. We have that power, and we do ban them. The United States wants to knock that down. They want to be able to come and get large quantities of water from Western Canada because the south of the United States is parched. The drought has been going on for far too long. It is a result of global warming, but Donald Trump doesn't believe global warming exists. He doesn't think that climate change exists, so he's not going to admit it. But he does know that there is water, and he wants to have it, and that's one of his key targets, Canadian water.
Okay, CTV political commentator and former NDP leader Tom Mulcair, thank you.
Thanks so much. And all this tariff talk has a lot of people at City Hall concerned. Mayor Olivia Chow's team outlining the role Toronto would play if the tariffs were imposed.
Yeah, CP24 Steve Ryan joins us live from City Hall with more. Steve.
Yeah, but Corey, I was just listening to your interview with Thomas Mulcair, and I have to agree with what he said. The feds had implemented this border restructuring, if you will, last month. The only difference is now that we're going to have this border czar that's going to work on both countries. And this is something that local law enforcement have been asking the Liberal government forever to do, which is to strengthen the border, more resources for the CBSA, and more drones, more heat-seeking equipment so that they can stop the influx of drugs and guns coming into the country. As Mulcair just said there, 1% of fentanyl goes into the United States. 95% of the guns that we have on our streets here come the other way. So this is why law enforcement have been asking for the same result, but they wanted it for what's coming into the country, not what's coming out of the country. So regardless of why the border is going to be stepped up now, I think we're going to get a win-win on both sides. President Trump will be happy that we are dealing with the 1% fentanyl that's going into his country, and law enforcement will be happy on this side, where the border will now be able to investigate those coming into the country, bringing illegal guns. Now, when it comes to the mayor, she held a press conference today with her financial committee, and she was promoting shopping local. She had asked the budget officer and the city manager to come together and look at contracts that are issued out to Americans or about to be issued out to Americans, and she wants those contracts to remain local. Here's more from the mayor, who we heard from earlier this morning. Let's listen.
Through this coordination, the City of Toronto, with its $78 billion budget, will have a Toronto Action Plan. The action plan includes a Buy Canadian initiative, a citywide push to put our locally made products and services first. It includes a review of the city government's procurement policies and contracts.
We live in an upside-down world, it seems. I'll send it back to you guys.
All right, live from City Hall, CP24, Steve Ryan. Thanks a lot, Steve. And with that, it is now 5:12, holding at 1 above 0. This is Live at 5.
Canada and the U.S. appear to have avoided a devastating tariff war after a phone call between Justin Trudeau and Donald Trump. The tariffs, we can tell you, have been delayed for 30 days, and Doug Ford confirms Ontario will also pause retaliatory measures. Stay with us.
Ontario was set to respond to President Trump's tariffs by removing American alcohol from the LCBO tonight, but that plan is on hold for now.
For the latest on this, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan, who's outside the LCBO head office on Queens Quay. Have you had a chance to tell people?
It is really a sense of whiplash right now, Lena. We were really gearing up for this moment, these dramatic tariffs that people were holding their breath for. And then all of a sudden to hear that it's dropped for at least 30 days. That's according to Prime Minister Justin Trudeau's tweet. I think people might be in a little bit of shock right now. They can go into the LCBO store and buy American booze still, and that is going to be the case tomorrow. I want to give you an idea of just kind of how dramatic this change has been, kind of what our plan was for tonight. We were supposed to go inside this LCBO at about 6:30 today, take a walk around with store managers and kind of show and tell the removal of these American products off store shelves like California wines and Jack Daniels. But now that is not going to happen. I reached out to the LCBO as soon as we heard that news from the Prime Minister to find out, what exactly the deal is here. Are we still going to be able to buy American booze? Well, then we heard from Doug Ford on Twitter. He posted an update, and I want to share that with you right now. He says, we have some good news today. We have temporarily averted tariffs that would have severely damaged our economy, giving time for more negotiation and time for cooler heads to prevail. Thank you to the countless workers, union leaders, businesses, and everyday proud Canadians who rallied together to make this happen. With the U.S. pausing tariffs, Ontario will also pause our retaliatory measures. If President Trump proceeds with tariffs, we won't hesitate to remove American products off LCBO shelves or ban American companies from provincial procurement. He goes on to say, make no mistakes, that Canada and Ontario continue to stare down the threat of these tariffs. So for now, everything on pause as we wait to see what happens in about a month's time. But for now, it looks like those retaliatory measures are on hold, according to that Ford tweet. So the move would have meant that those American products would have been off store shelves, which, is a really big buyer, the LCBO, of American booze. About $1 billion a year it picks up, some 3,600 products. but now those will still be available starting tomorrow and continuing today as well. So that's the latest outside of this LCBO, but you can expect we will be gathering some reaction because I'm guessing people have a lot to say about this right now because I know a lot of eyeballs have been on this whole tariff threat. Back to you.
Following the latest for us. Thanks so much for this, Melissa. And for more reaction to this, we're now joined live by Dana McCauley, the CEO of the Canadian Food Innovation Network. Thanks so much for joining us here on Live at 5. I think a lot of people are feeling relief tonight. What is your reaction?
Well, it's quite a roller coaster. I think I can speak for, almost everybody who has any stake in the economy that we're all pretty exhausted after the last 48 hours. And there is some relief, but it's not over yet. And I don't think we should, take for granted that 30 days means 30 days.
Yeah, Dana, along those lines, what do you think we should all be thinking about when it comes to, the foods and products that we buy in stores?
Well, I think that we all need to, as citizens, keep in mind that Canada has the safest, best food in the world and do whatever we can to help the Canadian businesses who are pivoting. I thought we were done with the word pivot after the pandemic, but we want to help them to pivot and get ready for whatever else is coming by supporting them with as many sales as possible. And if you do work in the food business, and 2 million Canadians do work in the, post-farm gates, part of the food sector, we want to help the businesses that employ those folks to be as, ready for any kind of change and disruption as they can. And that means, helping them by buying their products, by making sure that they have the technology and the information and the tax breaks that they need to still be here. Because if those 2 million people aren't working, wow, the ripple effects in our economy are huge.
I just heard you say it's not over yet, and we should assume that 30 days means 30 days. So let me ask you this. What exactly are you worried about once the 30-day period is over?
Yeah, well, a lot of the companies in the food sector who sell products into the U.S., they are, basically playing a game with the Canadian dollar. So historically, the Canadian dollar is lower than the American, and that helps Canadian food companies to be much, much more competitive in U.S. markets. But, if we have goods that we need to buy from other markets like the U.S., like, say, you need almonds because you make almond cookies. Well, all of a sudden, you're going to be in this tariff volley, and a lot of people have talked about how that is going to affect the auto industry. It's not different for any other type of manufacturer who has goods going back and forth across the border. So it's going to be a lot of spreadsheets and a lot of modeling and a lot of scrambling to try and find new markets to replace markets that you're not as confident in anymore. And that is going to take an awful lot of bandwidth for the folks who are running Canada's food businesses.
Okay, and with that, we have this 30-day pause and a pause in our conversation. Dana McCauley, the CEO of the Canadian Food Innovation Network. Thanks a lot.
Dana, thanks so much. So we are hearing from the Ford government, the Premier confirming that Ontario is hitting pause on all retaliatory measures. And we should also mention we're now hearing from Mayor Olivia Chow's office. And she says our statement stands. We will be ready to protect Torontonians no matter what the U.S. does next. So keep it here on CP24 for the latest on this breaking news story. We'll take a quick break now. You're watching Live at 5. Well, it was another busy day on the campaign trail in Ontario.
PC leader Doug Ford received an endorsement at a campaign stop in Etobicoke this morning. Ford secured the support of the Ontario Professional Firefighters Association, which represents over 12,000 firefighters province-wide. Ford held a news conference after meeting with members. This is where he continued to focus his campaign on the U.S. trade dispute.
There's $30 billion of procurement that we just aren't going to use American companies. And no matter if we're building a hospital, if we're building anything, we could be building a doghouse, I want to make sure that we're using Ontario steel, Canadian products, Canadian wood, Ontario wood, anything. I don't care if it's a toothpick. We need to purchase from Canada and Ontario. And that's exactly what we're going to do. And I'm encouraging all 444 municipalities to do exactly the same.
And speaking in Oshawa this morning, Ontario NDP leader Marit Stiles says she has a plan to make Ontario more tariff-proof.
We're going to work with Ontario employers, workers, and their unions to defend auto jobs right here in Ontario and all across the province, Oshawa to Windsor and everywhere else. We're going to do the same for all trade-exposed industries, providing direct support, creating new supply chains, very important, and finding new export markets to keep workers employed as we deal with the shock of these tariffs.
Ontario Liberal leader Bonnie Crombie paid a visit to Kitchener this afternoon as she met with supporters at a campaign kickoff event with local candidates. Crombie also vowed to tackle the cost of living crisis if she wins the election.
I need to point out to everyone that 7 years ago, their life was a little more affordable, wasn't it? Yeah. Not like today, but we have measures to put in place to make life more affordable for people by cutting small business taxes, cutting income taxes for people 75,000 and under, taking the HST off your home heating and hydro, making home building and buying more affordable, up to $170,000 more affordable.
And Ontario Green Party leader Mike Schreiner campaigned alongside his deputy leader in Kitchener today. Schreiner took aim at the Ford government over the housing crisis.
In Doug Ford's Ontario, housing starts are at a historic low, and housing costs are at a historic high. As a matter of fact, the average home in Ontario now costs $834,000. And this is only going to get worse. As industry experts have pointed out, with the trade war, construction costs are only going to go up. That's why we need bold action right now.
Election Day is February 27th. Ontario residents ages 18 and up who are Canadian citizens can vote. You can also cast your ballot at advanced polls February 20th through the 22nd.
526+1, you're watching Live at 5.
And Beyonce makes Grammy history as she finally takes home Album of the Year and Best Country Album. We'll explain next.
Well, the 67th annual Grammy Awards took place in LA, celebrating the best in music.
Wow, I really was not expecting this. Wow. I want to thank God, oh my God, that I'm able to still do what I love after so many years.
Beyonce became the first black artist to win Best Country Album for Cowboy Carter. Chapel Rowan won the award for Best New Artist. And winning her first Grammy, Sabrina Carpenter took home the prize for Best Pop Vocal Album.
You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
We're following breaking news. A looming trade war appears to be averted for now, with Prime Minister Justin Trudeau announcing tariffs on Canadian goods going into the U.S. have been paused. Stay with us. More on the story just ahead. Breaking news out of Ottawa and the Oval Office. The Prime Minister says Trump's tariffs will be paused for 30 days after a phone call with the U.S. president.
And Premier Doug Ford responds, announcing Ontario will also pause retaliatory measures for now. That includes American booze at the LCBO. We'll tell you more.
And the murder trial of 2 teen girls charged in a deadly attack on a homeless man downtown is underway.
You're watching Live at 5. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. I'm Lena Latafat.
And I'm Bakari Savage. A glimmer of hope from the Oval Office tonight. We are following breaking news. The Prime Minister confirms that tariffs on Canada have been delayed for 30 days.
It comes after a high-stakes phone call between Justin Trudeau and U.S. President Donald Trump late this afternoon. CP24's Phil Perkins is tracking the very latest. Phil, break down what this means.
All right, Lena, Bakari, let's go in chronological order here so it all makes sense. So early this morning, President Trump and Prime Minister Trudeau had a phone call. It reportedly went well. We then understand that President Trump and the President of Mexico also had a conversation. We found out that the result of that was a delay of 30 days of the tariffs there. So everyone's wondering, is Canada going to be getting the same treatment? Again, there is multiple tens of billions of dollars at stake, which would start the tariffs tomorrow, including some measures that Ontario would be making as well. We'll be getting to those later. And then we understand that there was a second call around the 3 o'clock hour. And then about an hour and a half after that, we got a tweet from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau that kind of mapped out what that conversation was about. He said it went very well and ended by saying that these tariffs, after this conversation with the president, are now going to be delayed until March. So here is what Prime Minister Justin Trudeau had to say exactly. He said, quote, "I just had a good call with President Trump. Canada's implementing over $1.3 billion in border plan. That is something that they pitched weeks ago, reinforcing the border with new choppers, technology and personnel, enhanced coordination with our American partners, and increased resources to stop the flow of fentanyl. Nearly 10,000 frontline personnel are and will be working on protecting the border." Now, here are some new wrinkles to this deal. In addition, Canada is making new commitments to appoint a fentanyl czar. We will list cartels as terrorists, ensure 24/7 eyes on the border, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. I have also signed a new intelligence directive on organized crime and fentanyl, and we will be backing it with $200 million. He then goes on to say what we know now. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. So they're working together on this. We also understand that Premier Ford, but really before these chats, guys, has really taken the forefront here. Obviously, he wore those hats. Canada's not for sale. He organized meetings with the Prime Minister. He triggered a provincial election needing the permission from Ontarians to try to blow up the budget and spend billions on stimulus, assuming that we're going to be hit by these tariffs. Well, Premier Ford also backtracking on some things that he talked about just today, including cutting links with Starlink and talking about removing American booze off LCBO shelves. He's seemingly pivoting there. Soon after the announcement from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, he went out on X and said this: "With the U.S. pausing tariffs, Ontario will also pause our retaliatory measures. If President Trump proceeds with tariffs, we won't hesitate to remove American products off LCBO shelves or ban American companies from provincial procurement." So a lot of things shifting right now after that one phone call. In 30 days, are we looking at another extension? Are we looking at more tariffs? One question I proposed to CTV political analyst Scott Reed: is there a way we can backtrack on having this provincial election that was completely based on having these tariffs? If they don't happen, what do we do? We're still going to the polls February 27th. It'd be an interesting question to ask and maybe get a fun answer. Back to you two.
That would be, so interesting. Actually, didn't think about that. Phil Perkins, live from our newsroom tonight. Thanks, Phil.
No problem.
Well, Ontario was set to respond to President Trump's tariffs by removing American alcohol from the LCBO tonight. But that plan, it's on hold for now.
And for the latest on that, let's go live to CP24's Melissa Duggan. She is outside the LCBO head office in downtown Toronto tonight. Melissa, the Premier says he will not hesitate to yank American booze if he needs to. He's waiting to see what happens next.
Yeah, but for now, that is not going to happen. So business as usual, Lena and Bakari, here at LCBO stores in Toronto and across the province. They are big buyers, of course, of American alcohol. So we thought that this could be a little bit of muscle to put a little influence onto our American neighbors about how Canada is feeling and really make a pinch when it comes to how we spend our money. So the plan was, up until we got that tweet or post on X from Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, we were going to see those American products taken off of store shelves across LCBO stores. Actually, our plan tonight was to go into this LCBO store and get a tour around, watch them take down products, take down signage, and prepare for this step that Ontario was going to take. But now that is off the table, at least for the next 30 days or so. So you can still buy your Jack Daniels at LCBO locations. You can still buy your California California wines, if that's your thing. But the question is, will people in Ontario and, at similar stores across our country be doing that? Because we have seen this movement that's been bubbling up about how buying habits are changing, how Canadians are making those choices when they're in stores to buy Canadian, if they can, instead of products that are made in the U.S. And the idea there, support what is made in our homegrown country. So it's going to be interesting to see, now that we've been seeing those signs pop up in stores saying made in Canada, will those stick around? And will people keep that in mind? I know people have been doing research online to see, make sure that that there's certain cereal, that there's certain yogurt, that there certain booze, of course, might be made in Canada. So that information might be top of mind right now. So Lena and Bakari, something to watch in the days and weeks to come. Will Canadians be sticking with those alternatives, making those choices when they go grocery shopping, when they just go shopping in general over the next little while? Back to you.
All right, Melissa Duggan reporting live outside of an LCBO tonight at the LCBO headquarters. Thanks so much for this, Melissa. And CTV political analyst Eric Ham says the deal that was reached today, this is a huge win for Canada.
Here's how this was, I think, such a major win for Canada specifically. We have always known for Donald Trump what the issue was that was causing him much consternation when it came to Mexico. It was the issue of the southern border and many illegals flowing through into the United States, and of course, the drug cartels. However, with Canada, we saw that goalpost continuously move. It was 1 minute, it was fentanyl. The next minute, it was the trade imbalance, which really isn't a trade imbalance, but of course, Donald Trump continued to make it one. And so the fact that we saw the prime minister actually drill the president down on a particular issue and make the president stay focused on that particular issue, which the prime minister was now able to address.
Right now it's 5:39, holding at 1 above zero. Let's get a check on the evening commute with CP24 traffic specialist, Adjoa Yabwa. Adj.
Well, it has been a busy afternoon, Bakari and Lena, and if your travels do take you onto the northbound lanes of the 410, really slow. The delays do start as you make your way from Steeles, and they continue all the way up towards Sandalwood. Is getting word of a stall on the northbound 410 at Sandalwood in the right lane. Obviously, it's outside of my camera view, but really busy nonetheless. Headed towards the 401, really busy across the top of the city. All earlier issues have cleared, but continue slow further east as you head into Durham. It looks like we're getting a lull in that light snowfall I was seeing out through Durham Way, and a little bit of light rain and slowdowns on the northbound 400. Delays start from Highway 7 and they continue up to King Road. We'll stick with the 400 outside of camera view on the northbound 400 exit ramp to Innisfil Beach Road. That ramp is completely closed off because of a dump truck which went into the ditch. The cleanup is underway. I'll send it back to you both.
All right, Adjoa, thanks so much for this. We are keeping a really close eye on that 30-day tariff reprieve. We're going to have more on that coming up throughout the evening. But for now, let's take a look at some other headlines. Now, that murder trial of 2 teen girls charged in a deadly attack on a homeless man downtown, currently underway.
The girls were among 8 arrested after 59-year-old Kenneth Lee was fatally attacked December of 2022. So the girls had pleaded guilty to manslaughter, 1 to assault with a weapon and assault causing bodily harm. The 2 girls now on trial are charged with second-degree murder. The Crown alleges the one delivered the fatal stab wound. A jury trial is scheduled in May for the remaining 2 accused.
And a man wanted in a 2021 homicide here in Toronto has been arrested by police in Saskatchewan.
30-year-old Jabril Elmi is facing a first-degree murder charge in the fatal shooting of 27-year-old Tane Murray. Murray was shot and killed near Oak and Sumac Streets. This is September 18th, 2021. Elmi was on the top 25 most wanted fugitives list in Canada. Arrangements are being made for him to return to Toronto to face charges.
Well, the Ministry of Labour is investigating after a worker died in a fall in the annex.
It happened shortly after 8:30 this morning at Bathurst and DuPont. And police say that the man was working on a billboard. That's when he fell from a ladder. He was pronounced dead at the scene.
A teen was killed in an early morning crash in Oshawa. Durham police say a vehicle was traveling southbound on Grandview Street North around 4:30 this morning when it left the road and struck a light standard and a sign. The 18-year-old man driving the vehicle died at the scene.
An OPP investigation into a high-level drug trafficking network in the GTA. It's resulted in 4 arrests and a massive cocaine seizure.
Project Shearwater started in September and led to a search warrant being executed in December on a home and car in Mississauga. Then last month, 5 search warrants were carried out in Toronto, Ajax, Markham, and Gravenhurst. 5 vehicles were also searched. Police seized nearly 300 kilograms of cocaine with an estimated street value of $29 million. They also recovered more than $50,000 in cash. 4 suspects are in custody, including a Mexican national who was under a deportation order. A 5th suspect is outstanding, and an arrest warrant has been issued for 38-year-old Brian Nelson of Toronto.
There's a change to subway service on Line 1 for TTC riders to keep in mind this week.
Yeah, trains will stop running between St. Clair and Finch each night at 11 to allow for track and station work. The early closures begin this evening, and they continue through Thursday. Shuttle buses will be running instead. The TTC says regular subway service will resume each following morning at 6 o'clock.
It's 5:43, holding at 1 above 0. This is Live at 5.
Well, we are following breaking news out of Ottawa and the White House. The Prime Minister is saying Donald Trump's tariffs will not take effect tomorrow. Our Steve Ryan is monitoring reaction from City Hall. Well, more on our top story tonight. Justin Trudeau says tariffs on Canadian goods going into the U.S. have been paused, but the threat still remains.
Mayor Child's team is outlining the role that Toronto would play if the tariffs are imposed. And CP24, Steve Ryan joins us live from City Hall with more. Steve.
Yeah, Bakari, it sort of reminds me of Shakespeare's Macbeth, full of sound and fury, signifying nothing. At the end of the day, nothing has really changed. We did hear today that the feds have agreed with the President of the United States to strengthen our borders. That's been something that law enforcement has been asking for a long time. And up until about a month ago, this was going to be implemented by our federal government. They're going to implement helicopters, drones, heat-seeking equipment, and more resources for the CBSA. And that was to stop the influx of guns coming into the country. 95% of the guns coming into Canada come from the United States. 1% of the fentanyl exits this country and goes into the United States. So for all of what was said, we are going to get the secured border for the president's 1% concern of the fentanyl, but we're also going to get that same border security to stop perhaps some of those 95% of the guns that are coming into the country. So it could work out for both countries at the end of the day. We did speak earlier on to the mayor and Councillor Carroll as well, and here's what 2 of them said at a press conference. Let's have a listen.
The City of Toronto buy a lot of goods. We do have a $78 billion budget where we buy our food for kids program, for shelters, for childcare centers. There's every aspect of how the city operated matters. It creates jobs, local jobs. It matters where we buy whatever we have, because it's a huge budget, it's a huge economy.
It's a matter of, are you buying equipment or are you buying contractors to do repairs? We do international bidding when we're buying transit vehicles, when we're procuring things, but we do a lot of local procurement too. Think of the 100 childcare centers are actually city run. We're buying food all the time, and we already have a provision that says wherever possible, buy local. And so we have that muscle that can be used to proceed in local fashion. Because our range is everything from billion-dollar bids to in the tens of thousands for the small things we do in all of our operations.
We also heard that the Prime Minister and the President have agreed to have or appoint a fentanyl czar. So while that fentanyl czar is stopping that 1% of fentanyl going into the United States, maybe that same fentanyl czar will stop the 95% of guns that are coming into Canada. It could be a win-win. Back to you guys.
All right, Steve Ryan, live at City Hall, working on this breaking news story. Again, if you're just joining us, Justin Trudeau confirming that Donald Trump's tariffs have been delayed for 30 days. All eyes on this story. We'll be right back with more. You're watching Live at 5 on Toronto's Breaking News, CP24.
Well, the wreckage of the plane that crashed into the Potomac River in Washington this week, it's been recovered.
Crews used heavy machinery to pull what's left of the jet out of the water. The remains of 55 of the 67 victims of the mid-air crash have been recovered so far, and rescuers are confident They'll find everyone. The plane was about to land on Monday when it was hit by a Black Hawk helicopter. On a training mission, there were no survivors. Now, portions of both aircraft will be sent to a hangar for a thorough investigation.
And staff of the U.S. Agency for International Development were instructed to stay out of the agency's Washington headquarters today after Elon Musk announced President Donald Trump had agreed with him to shut it down.
The building was cut off by yellow police tape, and officers blocked the lobby. Thousands of U.S. aid employees have already been laid off, and programs have been shut down since Musk was appointed to lead the Department of Government Efficiency. Democratic lawmakers are protesting the move, saying Trump lacks the constitutional authority to shut down the agency without congressional approval. They also oppose Musk accessing sensitive government information through his inspections of government agencies, which are sanctioned by Trump.
And Musk says that the agency, which oversees humanitarian development and security programs in 120 countries, is beyond repair.
Well, more Palestinians are making their way through the Rafah border crossing to Egypt, bolstering a ceasefire agreement reached by Israel and Hamas.
The Palestinian Health Ministry says more than 100 sick and wounded patients have made the crossing since it was reopened Sunday for the first time since May. Rafah is Gaza's only crossing that does not enter into Israel. The ongoing truce calls for the release of 33 hostages and nearly 2,000 prisoners, as well as the return of Palestinians to northern Gaza and an increase in humanitarian aid to the devastated territory.
One person was killed and 13 others wounded in a Russian strike on Ukraine's Kherson region.
Russian forces launched 2 guided aerial bombs, one of which struck a residential area. Several homes and vehicles were destroyed. Officials in Kherson say Russia also attacked a passenger bus with drones, injuring 5 people, including 2 children.
Well, 2 people are dead and several others critically hurt after a blast at an upscale apartment building in Moscow.
Among the dead is the founder of a battalion that battled Kyiv's forces in the Donetsk region. He had been tried in absentia by Ukraine. This was in December on charges of participating in an illegal armed paramilitary. A local media reports one of his bodyguards was also killed. 3 others were wounded. They say officials are calling the explosion an assassination. Ukrainian authorities have not yet commented.
Well, schools have been shut down and emergency crews deployed on the Greek island of Santorini after a spike in seismic activity caused concern about a potentially powerful earthquake.
Precautions were also ordered on several nearby islands after more than 200 undersea earthquakes were recorded in the area over the past 3 days. So mobile phones of people on the islands, they blared with alert warnings about the potential for rock slides, while several of the earthquakes caused loud rumbles. Greek officials say that the quakes, some as high as a magnitude of 4.5, were not linked to Santorini's volcano.
Well, the largest award for Canadian fiction has parted ways with its lead sponsor.
The Giller Prize will no longer partner with Scotiabank due to members of the literary community's protests over the bank's ties to an Israeli arms manufacturer. The organization's statement doesn't address the reason for the split. The bank had partnered on the literary award for 20 years and grown the prize to $125,000 in total.
It's 5:55 plus 1. You're watching Live at 5.
And coming up, a Canadian coffee throwback. Tim Hortons unveils new details about the upcoming installment of Roll Up to Win. That story's next.
All right, we are following breaking news from the White House tonight. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau has posted to social media saying tariffs on Canada from the United States have been delayed. This is a live shot of the White House. Proposed tariffs will be paused for at least 30 days while we work together. Those are words coming from the Prime Minister. We're also learning Canada will appoint a fentanyl czar as part of this deal to avert Trump's tariffs. A U.S.-Canada cabinet meeting is taking place right now to talk about next steps. So stay with us as we follow this breaking news.
And Tim Hortons is returning its famed Roll Up to Win contest back to its roots.
Well, the company says it will reintroduce hot beverage cups with rims that can be rolled up to reveal a prize when the promotion gets underway February 24th. It was known as Roll Up the Rim to Win until 2020. Remember that, when Tim's moved the contest to a completely digital format in an effort to keep staff from having to handle cups during the COVID-19 pandemic. Winners will now show their winning rims before dropping wrapping them in a box. Customers will also still be able to earn digital rolls. So much nostalgia.
That's 5:59. This is Toronto's breaking news, CP24.
Thanks for watching. CTV News at 6 is coming up next.